Okay, so let's dive deeper a little bit more into functions. So I hope you're not intimidated, but we've just got a baby robot class here, which can do a bunch of things. It can spin, it can dance, it can bounce, it can perform, it can walk, and it can sing. So through this baby robot class, we are going to discuss the 3 different configurations that functions can have. So let's examine the first 4 functions, which is spin, dance, bounce, and perform. So this is the basic configuration for a function. So we have a func keyword, the name of the function, parentheses, the curly brackets, and the instruction. So that's a regular function, and it's also called a void function, which means this is a function that only runs instructions. So spin, dance, bounce, and perform are all void functions. So if we want to make use of these void functions, of course, we first have to instantiate our baby robot by typing in baby robot as a variable. So we have that container, and we set the container to be able to hold baby robot types, and we set it equal to the actual baby robot. So we access these void functions by typing in the name of the variable, dot, and then the function. And by the way, functions in the context of it being inside a class or a struct is also called a method. So functions and methods, pretty much the same thing. Okay, so we access the bounce method of the baby robot. Let's play the playground and see what that looks like. Okay, looks like it successfully bounced. So that's a void function. The really cool thing about functions is you can package them together. As you can see in this one, perform, we use spin, dance, and bounce all at the same time. So imagine the capabilities of functions being able to package together tens, if not thousands, of instructions all together into one function. It can be pretty amazing. So the way we run these packaged functions is the same thing. Type in the name of the variable, form, and if we run the playground, it will successfully spin, dance, and bounce. So those are void functions. Okay, the next configuration of a function is the one that you see right here. It's the walk function. So it's pretty much the same. We have the func keyword, the name of the function, the parentheses, the curly brackets, and the instruction. But there's one thing that's different. There's something inside the parentheses. And if you can see, it's a number of steps variable of type integer. Interesting. This configuration is actually a function that can take in an input. So this function will take in a value of type integer and be able to use it inside of its instructions. So how do we use it? If we go down to the bottom again and type in babyrobot.walk, you will see in autocomplete that it gives us an option for a number of steps that we can fill in. So if we press enter, it will ask for a number of steps type integer. So if we go ahead and press 8 and play this playground, the function will successfully process with that input. So now it says I'm walking with 8 steps. So that's one type of function with a configuration that can take in an input. And the syntax for that is the func keyword, the name of the function, and putting in a variable with its type. We then use the name of that variable inside of the function. And when we call the function, we can fill in that missing variable. So that's one configuration that can accept an input. The third configuration of a function is a function that can return something. So not only can it accept input, it can also return output. What do we mean by this? First, let's examine the syntax. So we have a func keyword, the name of the function, and we got the input. So this time it's a variable named lyrics of type string. Then we have this arrow pointing to a data type of type string. And this function also has a return statement. And it returns a song. What does this mean? So this function can receive input and can produce an output. So whenever you run this function, it will turn into a string. Interesting. So let's examine the instructions inside of it. So we have a let song, which is a constant of type string actually. And then we just have a string interpolation with the lyrics inserted in between the string. After that, we have return song. So that just means when we create that song and we input the lyrics, it will grab the song and spit it out, return it. So this entire function, when called, will turn into a string, and we can actually store it in a variable. And that's exactly how we use it. So let's go ahead and go to the bottom again and type in variable for performance. Since we want a string for performance, we will set it to type string, and we'll set it equal to the function. So we are going to type babyrobot.sing. And as you can see, same thing with functions that take in an input. This function will take in lyrics of type string. So how about we type in making my way downtown. Okay, so what is happening here? We have a variable named performance that can hold in strings. And then we set a function equal to it. So what will happen is this function will process and it will transform itself into the string that we can use inside the variable performance. So now if we play this playground, you can see that it successfully stored the value ooh la la, making my way downtown, ooh la la, into the variable performance. So this is what we mean by functions that can take in inputs and that can produce an output. So just a quick review. The first configuration is a void function, which doesn't output anything. So these functions simply run instructions. A void function can also take in an input, which is the second configuration, a void function that can take in an input. So these functions will run instructions and will also process inputs inside of their instructions. Then the third configuration is a function that can take in inputs and can produce an output. And these functions, when run, transform themselves into their designated outputs, which can then be stored in a constant or a variable. And by the way, technically there's a fourth configuration, which is a function that can output something but doesn't take an input. But in this case, we'll group them together. So those are the different configurations of functions.